Michigan is distancing itself from some of its older mentalities. Why that's important. Right here on this episode of Locked On Wolverines.
You are Locked On Wolverines, your daily podcast on the Michigan Wolverines. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Friday. We're back in doing it. Locked On Wolverines podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Now the number one sports podcast network. I'm your man on the ground, Isaiah Hole, publisher of Wolverines Wire through USA Today Sports Media Group. Thank you to all of our everydayers who watch or listen to the show every single day. Also, a big thank you for making us your first listen. First, we're going to get into the program moving from some of the older mentalities it's had. Then we'll talk a little basketball. And then finally, the Everydayers Club question about Michigan's Mount Rushmore. It's funny, I just realized I didn't fully get everything in order that I needed to. Okay, there we go. That's going to be close enough. We'll figure it out as we go. All right. So I was on SiriusXM this morning and talking to Matt Schick and Anthony Herron, and they were asking me some questions about just, some of the changes that have been made in the offseason. And it kind of got me down like a mental rabbit hole a little bit, right? Because it was pretty clear for the most part that there was going to be a pretty significant change to the program, unless they ended up going out and getting Jesse Minter, which they didn't. And obviously he ended up with the Baltimore Ravens. So that in and of itself is marked. Okay. So it's notable because what has Michigan been for a long time? I'm kind of hearkening back to a topic that I remember bringing up in 2020-ish in talking about the state of the program. And, I've kind of harped on it throughout the years of getting away from the Bo Schembechler of it all and how important that was. And it's not just, it's not just the coaches. It's more than that, right? And they did away with it, but for a while they did that little, student section banner with the team speech. And I mean, that's fine. Michigan's all about tradition, but creating new traditions to go along with the old traditions that are based in the old traditions felt it just felt forced to me in a lot of ways. And a lot of those things kind of have continued. Now, I'm not against tradition, right? I am absolutely for tradition, but in a lot of ways, Michigan has gone away from a lot of the things that I felt made it have that old school feel, right? The stadium experience at the Big House is the same. I mean, I haven't been to an NFL game in over a decade. Okay. It's been a long time, but it's indistinguishable from what that was. If you go to a football game and a basketball game, you're actually going to get a lot of the same fan experiences, which I don't love, to be honest. Make some noise, for whatever. And it just puts a bunch of things up on the board and it ends in saying and we forgot the students, right? I don't love that. It's the same music and graphics and all of that. It just that all feels very canned. And I understand that you're trying to create a fan experience, but at the same time, I also don't think you need to do that with hey, we're going to show the team speech. Yeah, you can have the intro video, which I think is awesome still. I still get goosebumps with that, right? And it does pay homage to a lot of the tradition. I just don't think you need to live there. Now, I bring this up because you have Kyle Whittingham now. You've got a bevy of coaches who are at Michigan for the first time. And right now, we'll see what the defensive line replacement ends up being. You have one holdover from the Sharon Moore era and Tony Alford, who during the Jim Harbaugh era was at Ohio State. You still have Freddie Jackson still in the building as well from the Lloyd Carr era. And I think that's great too. But I'm glad that they have moved on from the idea of Michigan man will coach Michigan and all that. I think that needed to go. Because what it does is it keeps you locked into a past version of college football that just does not exist anymore. And we've seen when that can cause problems. So we hope that everything remains in a positive trajectory, right? Because Obviously, Bill Martin went outside of the Michigan ecosystem when he brought in Rich Rod. His only holdover, as far as a coach was concerned, was Fred J. So that, though, ended up being a bit disastrous. And then they overcompensated by bringing in Brady Hoke, with the only caveat really being like, yes, he had a very good group of five record at both Ball State and San Diego State. But really the only metric that anyone cared about was he came from somewhere in essentially the Bo Schembechler coaching tree by being the defensive line coach under Lloyd Carr. That was it, right? Like, what made everybody feel better when he had his introductory press conference? Why did he win it? Because he looked down the camera and slammed his fist on the podium saying, the most important game on that schedule, right? And everyone ate it up after Rich Rod with the, Miss Rita's nacho dip and all of that kind of, the all in for Michigan and, the Josh Groban song nonsense. In some ways, going from Sharon Moore to Kyle Whittingham, from a thematic standpoint, feels a lot like going from Rich Rod and Brady Hoke to Jim Harbaugh. And it's funny because it wasn't much of a gap, right? It was 2 years, and Michigan beat Ohio State in one of them. They beat Alabama in one of them. But it feels like a serious move made by serious people. And I think that is excellent for the trajectory of this Michigan team. Like, we've talked about this earlier this week. Just the fact that it feels like Bryce Underwood is going to be coached. Because this is one of the things that I mentioned, is that when you look at what was Bryce Underwood after the New Mexico game, and I understand it's New Mexico, it's not the same as playing Ohio State and Alabama, but at the same time, it was like a different opponent with a pulse, and Bryce was phenomenal. He made pretty much all the right reads. He was accurate. He had good footwork. He had, good mechanics, all of those things. And then you look to the Ohio State and the Texas games, and none of those things were true. I don't care if it's level of opponent, like it by the end of the year, all of those things that are true in week 1 better be true in week 13, 14, 15, postseason, whatever it might be. So I think just by having coaches that are, now he's working with a high, top tier quarterbacks coach. You've had Kyle Whittingham out there and Jason Beck both talking about, what they need to fix with Bryce Underwood and all of those things. And it just does not feel like silly season, number one. And number two, I just think that to move on from the rigid mentalities that Michigan has often had could pay very quick dividends. And that, I think, can end up being very, very exciting. So kudos to them for that. And I just think that's going to end up working out in ways. And it's exciting to just look at hey, they brought in Jason Beck, 4th rated offense 2 years in a row. Now he's going to be running Michigan, who has Bryce Underwood, Andrew Marsh, Jamie French, JJ Buchanan, Jordan Marshall, Savion Hyder. Nuts. Absolutely nuts if deployed correctly. That is a lot more talent than what they had at Utah. I'm not even mentioning some people who could be participants, Celesi Moa, Travis Johnson, guys that are taking big steps forward, Channing Goodwin, Amarian Stewart, right? They've got a lot to work with. And, the tight end room, even Deacon Tonielli could really be a force this year. I really believe that could be the case. So there's a lot to really like about where Michigan is at, just from a mentality standpoint, and that's just different. Instead of looking back on what was and saying we need to be that because that was great, you're looking at okay, what can we do now? It's the idea of presence in the moment, right? Instead of future casting or trying to relitigate the past. They're here in the moment, and that's great. All right, let's talk a little basketball, and we've got a lot to get to there as well. Let's do that here in just a moment. But before we do, hiring isn't just about finding someone willing to take the job. It's about finding the right person with the right background who can actually help your business move forward. And if you want candidates who match what you're looking for, Indeed sponsored jobs is the move. Because instead of hoping the right person stumbles across your post, Indeed helps you match with quality candidates by boosting your job listing to the people who fit your specific criteria, like skills, certifications, and location. If I were hiring, I wouldn't just want someone who can help. I'd want someone with real experience who can jump right in. That's what I like about Indeed. You can get specific and target exactly what you need. It saves time because you're spending less energy sorting through mismatches, and with sponsored jobs, your post gets seen by candidates who are actually a fit. And here's a stat that says it all. In the minute we've been talking, companies like yours made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all of your boxes with Indeed sponsored jobs. Listeners of this show will get $75 sponsored job credit to help your job get the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. That's Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring, do it the right way with Indeed. All right, we're going to continue on here momentarily. But before we do, the Winter Games are officially here. And if you're anything like us, you're locking in for the events you only get to see on the biggest stage every 4 years. That's why we're following the Winter Games on FanDuel, and it just makes sense. From medal counts to individual events to finding your angle on the sports you care about most, FanDuel gives you more ways to stay connected to the action. The drama of curling matches that start slow and somehow get intense fast. Speed skating races decided by inches. Hockey games that feel different right from the opening face-off. Even niche events become must-watch when you're fully locked into the competition. FanDuel keeps the entire Olympic experience engaging from start to finish. The Winter Games are on, and there is no better way to follow them than with FanDuel. FanDuel, play your game. Thank you for making Locked On Wolverines your first listen. Now is the time to get even more involved, and that would require doing something bold, radical, and certainly worth it. And that's joining the Everydayer Club. You get an ad-free experience when you do that, but most importantly, you get the members-only Discord access. That, the third segment of this show is strictly because someone asked a question, and it is, we're trying to occasionally pay that off. Hey, you've got some big topics you want us to talk about. We're going to do it. We're going to do it for a whole show sometimes. Sometimes it'll just be a segment. And you can ask me anything, and I'll try to answer what I can when I can. I'm going to be a way more transparent there than I can be here because it's paywall. And with that paywall, it's $50 a year or just $5 a month. So check out LockedOnWolverines@supercast.com or check the show notes to learn more. All right. Kind of delayed doing the show today because I did the radio show this morning. I had 3 sips of a Heineken Zero. It's 0.0 alcohol. And I feel incredibly hungover. Could not sleep. My histamines felt like they're through the roof. And it's not dissimilar from how I feel after football games at Michigan Stadium with the field turf. So if someone out there can explain to me what the heck is going on, because I don't want to just abstain from every single thing in life. I did not have this problem until 2013. And it's like I can't even drink non-alcoholic beer. It's very frustrating. So DM me if you have any idea, if you've somehow done the research or this sounds familiar to you and you can help me. I'd appreciate it because it's not fun feeling like I get hit by a Mack truck despite having had 3 sips of non-alcoholic beer. Come on now. All right, let's talk some basketball. Michigan, since we last talked, we took the day off yesterday. So I had some good personal stuff going on yesterday. And I just wanted to take the day off. And we're going to do a show tomorrow evening or late afternoon after the UCLA basketball game, probably on the drive home, I'm going to guess. But the basketball team had a very impressive victory over Northwestern. We're not going to fully relitigate that, but I at least want to make some mention. Pretty insane that they had their biggest deficit all season long in the first half and at halftime. It was 11 or 12 at halftime. It was 12 at one point. Maybe it was 10 at halftime. I don't remember. And It didn't really look like anything was changing in the second half for the first 5 plus minutes. 14 minutes, 22 seconds left in the game, and they're down 16. Just felt like they were getting run off the court. And here's why I'm kind of doing a setup here. LJ Cason is the one who lifts them out of it. Right? Like, who had that on their bingo card this time last year? No one. But it's not just that, right? It's the fact that it reminds me a bit of the 2017 team going into 2018. It reminds me of some of the going to work Pistons. It reminds me of the 21 through 23 football team, with the idea of a different guy can kill you. We can find different ways to hurt you at any given point in time. And, this time it wasn't even a starter. But we've seen games where almost anybody has taken over at any point in time. We haven't really had a Roddy Gale game since the tournament last year. So kind of waiting on that. We haven't really had like a Will Shutter game, and it feels like that's certainly possible, where he just rains blood from above, right? Just an aerial attack that just gets you. But the fact that it was LJ Cason this game. Last game against Ohio State, it was Adai Mara and Morez Johnson Jr. The game before that was Namari Burnett, right? Like it just seems like any game, it's not just going to be Yaxel that's going to get you. Like, yeah, Yaxel's going to get you to some degree in most games, didn't against Penn State, but for most games, Yaxel's going to get you. But, the fact that they have the supporting cast that at any point, right? Was it Nebraska? My memory is failing me. It might have been Ohio State the other time, the home game, but I think it was Nebraska, where it was Elliot Cadeau. That I'm pretty sure it was Nebraska. Elliot Cadeau is the one. And then, so we've seen the backcourt do it. We've seen Yaxel as the most kind of consistent player on the team. We've seen Morez look incredible throughout. For the most part, we've seen Adai Mara, have his games. We've seen Namari Burnett have his games. We've seen LJ Cason, right? Like they just have so much depth and ability. Like, it's like what John Rothstein has said, like the four guys on the bench that are regular contributors to this team, take them in one front court player and they would probably still be an NCAA tournament team. That in and of itself is impressive, because there's other teams that are like, they're playing with what they got and they're not that, right? Like Ohio State might not be that right now. So that's pretty cool. If you're a Michigan fan and you're watching what this team is able to do. And listen, I don't hate the fact that game went the way it did. They went in against a non-tournament, very middling Northwestern team that was 10-11, I think, going into the game or something like that, 10-12. And they were just hitting everything. Like, they got the best shot. They seem to have figured something out, because they could not hit layups. Michigan is great in the paint. They weren't doing it on Wednesday. They were not able to do a lot of the things that you would expect them to be able to do to get out of the rut. And yet they couldn't really stop the Wildcats either. Defense, which, Michigan's had one of the better defenses in the country. Maybe it's the best. I'm going to look right now to see here. It won't take too long. The number one defense in the country. And that wasn't really helping them either for long stretches. It just felt like Northwestern was hitting everything. And so you needed to find a way to both get stops and score, and they were doing neither thing until eventually they were doing both. They were like 11 for 12 and had like they ended up scoring, because when you count fouls and everything, they ended up scoring on like 20 straight trips to their side. But they were like 11 for 12 in field goals during the turnaround. And in that stretch, they were 12 to 2 in terms of scoring, and helped get them all the way back. And even more so, like they tie it up. Northwestern then goes up 6 again. And then Michigan is like, okay, now you're done. Why is that important? I mean, that's just kind of relitigating the game. But why is that important? Because there is going to be adversity next month, right? There just is going to be. Whether Michigan wins the Big Ten tournament or not, like whatever, you got the NCAA tournament to really think about. And they're going to face some level of adversity. Might not be in the first round or two. Certainly by the Sweet 16, Elite 8, Final Four, whatever it might be. And I think that the more that they have moments like this, the more they have moments like the Nebraska game, where it did not really feel like Michigan was winning that game at any point in time until basically they did. That's massive for them, just knowing, hey, we got this. Right? Because when you know you have something, when you're confident in your abilities, when things aren't going your way, but you just know, like, yeah, we can do it. I mean, there's a danger to that as well, right? Like, there is a danger to it for the sake of you could, you can be overconfident, but that doesn't seem what this team is. And I got to a point because, I don't have to write on every game. Like, I try to write on almost every game, but there's games I miss, right? It might conflict with Bible study or might conflict with church if they haven't had any of those this year. They did last year, or it just felt like there was a lot of Sunday noon tips. But like I don't necessarily write every game. And if that was going to be a loss, it was like, well, I don't know if I want to write on this. Right? I'm watching the game. And when they went down 16, I said to myself, if they get to the under 12 media timeout and they're still down 15 or more, then I might as well go back to my Game of Thrones rewatch at this point and just not even deal with it. And that's obviously not what happened. I mean, it was a meager improvement from 14:22 remaining to the under 12 media timeout. And but it was enough to, like, okay, all right, they're still within striking distance. There's a lot of time. Let's see what happens. And then they win by 12. That's impressive. All right, let's talk. What would be my Michigan Mount Rushmore? I'm going to do it a little differently because I just think that's only fair to me, to be honest. We're going to do that here in just a moment. But before we do, this is Mazda's moving the game forward for those who show there's more to the score than what's on screen. We just spent a whole bunch of time talking about LJ Cason, who provided that spark off the bench. He had control. He was going out and he made some tough clutch shots when Michigan needed him most and helped bring the Wolverines back from the brink. And then the defense stood tall after a full game of basically not doing that and managed to get the road win at Northwestern when they were against all odds, did not look like it was possible, and yet they managed to do it anyway. These are the things that remind us of what it really takes to raise the bar. It's that extra work off the court, dialing in every detail, giving it that extra fire, that grit, and I never quit. That really is true. They really never quit. We put the same passion into every model. Highlights make the reel. What it took to get there makes it count. There's more to a Mazda because there's more to you. All right. I'm going to be doing some cheating. I had to say it that way. When it comes to doing my Michigan Mount Rushmore, we're going to do it Harbaugh era. And honestly, Harbaugh era forward. And I mean, it's honestly just Harbaugh era. Because that's when I started covering the team. Because, I wasn't a casual from 2006, really like 2005 forward. But for me, it's hard to I could just pick the Heisman winners, then add someone like Willie Heston and call it a day. It would be really easy to do. But we're going to be a little more nuanced. And honestly, I'm also cheating a little bit here with I'm combining some players that are the same position group with two of the spots. So first off, I'm combining the running backs from 21 and 23 to 23. And I'm not combining all of them. I'm really just taking a look at it and saying that it's Hassan, Haskins, and Blake Corum would be face number one. Because to me, both are important. I could, if I had to choose one, it would be Blake Corum. But I can't ignore the 5 touchdowns against Ohio State from Hassan Haskins. I mean, Blake was hurt and ineffectual in the latter part of that season and was not he was the game breaker early. And then the latter half, he just it wasn't that he was nowhere to be seen, but he was injured and he still made plays here and there. He had a play in the Ohio State game in 21. it was Haskins that was just the beast. But then from there, I mean, Blake had a Heisman-worthy year in 2022 and obviously 23. I mean, he did what he did. I mean, and you could even throw in a little Donovan Edwards action for what he did against Ohio State in 22 and in the national championship game in 23, right? Because, you know, Donovan doesn't have those two big runs in the national championship. Maybe that game goes differently, you know? But really, ultimately, I'm going with those two guys. I mean, I think there's moments, if I was to choose moments, Heisman moments, or not Heisman, but Mount Rushmore moments, I mean, that might be a different story, right? Then you might be talking about two of the three Heisman winners. I mean, you still might be talking Tom Harmon with his performance in Columbus, the one year when he got a standing ovation. And then, you know, there's just a lot of other places where you could look at it. You could say Braylon Fest. You could say the Rose Bowl over time. You could say all kinds of things there. All right, I'm going to go for my other spot, though. I'm gonna combine two guys again. I'm doing two offensive and two defensive here. I gotta go with Trevor Keegan and Zach Zinter, because I just think that those guys were so paramount to what they were able to do up front in those 3 years. It's not a mistake that they were so good up front and won 2 Joe Moore awards with those guys starting. Now, they were able to finish the job without Zach Zinter at the end of the year in 2023, but you know, those guys were the heart of that team. They might be the most important players on that team, you know, from 21 to 23 period. They made some of those runs possible. So I have to go with them. Then on the defensive side, Aidan Hutchinson is a no-brainer. And he's a no-brainer, but it's funny because I could sit there and think of some other guys. I could sit there and say, well, Devin Bush, and I could think about Jordan Lewis, you know, Jabril Peppers. But to me, Aidan Hutchinson was just such a game wrecker in 2021. He was the engine for that defense, and he was an emotional leader and just an all-around leader. It was the Tuesday before the Ohio State game that week. I think I did a podcast after that. I think we did it one real late. Maybe I could be completely wrong, but like that's how I remember it. And I just remember kind of feeling like they might actually win this game, right? Like I had not had that feeling in you know, up until that point. We'd all lived through 2018 and 2019 when it was like 19 was more that they were peaking finally around that time, but they still didn't feel like they were on the level as Ohio State was. But 18, I mean, you know, everyone kind of felt like, yeah, this is the year they're going to do it. They're just going to squeeze the life out of them, and that's what it's going to be. It was Aidan Hutchinson's press conference that Tuesday before the Ohio State game. I don't know if I was the first person to start calling Ohio State soft. I don't know, but I know it was. I had not heard anyone else saying it, and it was the Aidan Hutchinson interview that day that kind of led me to believe that. You know, just thinking about like, you know, some of their reactions to him. So to me, he's got to be on there. And then the last one, I'd go with Mikey Sainristil. I just think that he brought so much to the table from a leadership and playability capacity. Against Maryland, I mean, they were not going to be undefeated in that game if it wasn't for Mikey Sainristil, who was just playing out of position and making play after play. You know, like, and that wasn't just that game, of course, but like he was incredible in that game. So, all right, we're actually at time. Kind of can't believe it, especially because whatever this allergy is, I need fixed. I'm on Benadryl right now. Just want to sleep all day. Anyhow, that's going to do it for us. Thanks for watching. Thank you for listening. We'll talk to you again soon. Peace.